Hi, and welcome to the National Michael Chekhov Association's NMCA way of doing Michael Chekhov on your feet. This week, our topic is movable centers. And to get us launched right up into our activity, here is my dear colleague and co-founder of the National Michael Chekhov Association, Wil Kilroy. Wil, take it away.
All right. Hi there. So what I'd like you to do, you can be standing, you can do this sitting, is you'll feel your collarbone here, and then just crawl your fingers down probably about 3 inches to the middle of your upper chest. So that's the location we're going to work with. You might give that a little tap, a little massage. You might even feel a little indentation of vulnerability there when you press. And I just want you to tap that area and imagine that tap goes inside of your body. So it starts to reverberate within you all the way through to your upper back. So you're just energizing this point that we're working with. This is our location in the upper chest. And once you feel like you have that happening, you can let go of the tap and just use your imagination to really focus on that point in the upper chest. And imagine that there is a ball of energy within you that is in that location. And imagine that the quality of this ball of energy is that of warm sunshine. And imagine the motion that it has, the sense of movement is that it is sending rays out in all directions. So the rays are going 360 degrees all around you, and you can just feel how it is to stand that way. And imagine that it's also filled with the quality of confidence that just exudes out of you. It's behind you, it's to the sides of you, in the front of you. This wonderful ball of energy in the upper chest, and it's sending out this wonderful warm sunshine. So you've got a location, you've got a certain quality, you've got a sense of movement, this shining that's happening. If you want, you could take just a little stroll, maybe just a little 360 circle, whatever, so you can experience how that is. Let that even affect your breath. If the center is here in the upper chest and it's this warm, radiant sunshine, what then happens to your breath? Do you breathe in more deeply? When you exhale, do you feel like you're exhaling that wonderful warmth that's exuding from all of you? And I want to keep this rolling because we want to keep it short so it's something that you can follow. So I'm going to throw this right over to Paul now, and he's going to continue on.
Just let that kind of wash away. Maybe shake it out if you want to. Just go back to your neutral body. I'd like to talk a little bit about our inner landscape and the thinking, feeling, willing lives. And I've been doing a lot of stuff with the body parts that tend to communicate to those areas. So I want you to think about your center being in your heart. And just put your hands or palm of your hand, which is also a feeling center, and just put the palm of your hand and just open that up. Just connect, like, this is my feeling life. This is where my feeling life lives. It's my feeling life lives. And then just outside of that, I want you to put a little cloud around a heart, and the heart is just bleeding, dripping blood. Just feel that out there and see what it does to your psychology, your feeling life. And then support it by putting your hand underneath it and letting the blood slowly drip onto the palm of your hand. And let that lead you around in space and shape your feeling life and how you move through the space. Kind of combining two things. So just really let that heart that's bleeding out in front of you just lead you through space. And like I said, if you wanted, you can always just use that palm of your hand and kind of put it underneath it and just feel that blood dripping from that center as it leads you forward. Good, and let that just kind of wash away. And we'll go over to Ophir.
Let's do this washing away. And now we're going to do very strange thing. We're going to sit down and imagine gray, um, a gray, cold, smooth, warm inside your right eye. A gray, smooth, cold, warm that is crawling inside your right eye. And imagine it and let it be the fuel tank of your body. Let this worm give impulses to your every gesture, and you can take a pen or a coin or something, or a key, something small that is next to you, and look at it. And do something with it, like write something or put it elsewhere. And now let this worm go down, 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 down to your heart. So it's here in the middle of your chest, inside this worm. And what's the difference? Now take your pen or coin and write or put it aside. Do some very short etude with it. And now this worm is going down to your pelvis. Let it go down to your pelvis. Feel it, and this is your fuel tank now. And take the pen or small object and do the short etude with it now. And you can wash it out. And let's go to Eric.
We're going to imagine 3 different kinds of centers, and they're not always going to be inside of you. The first center that you're going to imagine, I want you to imagine that there is that your center is in front of you, and you can hold it and it's just hovering right in front of you. And it is fluffy, it's soft, it's pink, and it's spiky, but definitely fun. And it's right in front of you. And I want you to imagine that all of your impulses are coming out through this center that you have in front of you. And I want you to allow your impulses to be affected as it goes through this center. Fluffy, spiky, fun. And I want you to say the word mine.
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 Mine. Mine.
Mine.
Mine. Mine. Mine.
Mine.
Mine.
Okay. Now I want you to drop that. And now I want you to recreate a new center. And this is an ice cube. Okay. And it sits right in your forehead. And it is spinning counterclockwise. And it's really icy cold. It's reminiscent of a brain freeze. So you may feel some headachy pain coming through it. And it is definitely affecting your ability to be comfortable. And now I want you to say the word mine and channel it through the impulse through this center. Mine.
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 Good.
Mine.
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 Okay, good. And now I want you to drop that. And now I want you to imagine that you have a round, bouncy rubber ball that's inside. Imagine that your chest cavity is hollow. And it's one of those bouncy balls that when you bounce it, it ricochets off of the walls and the ceiling all around you, okay? And this center is ricocheting all around the inside of your empty body cavity, okay? And you're going to say the word mine when you feel this center, when you feel the center bouncing around, and the impulse is going to go through that. Okay, are you ready? Okay, and let it bounce around. It might even tickle a little bit as it's going bouncing around, really crazy. Now say the word mine.
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 Mine. Hard as it might be, let that one go. Okay, take a breath. And I kindly and lovingly pass the torch to Andrea.
So let's take that center of energy and raise it to the top of our heads, where we can feel a tingling sensation like sparkles coming out. And we're just going to feel that and the amount of energy and glowing and sparkling and reflecting of light that comes out of that. And then let's just say the first word that comes to our head.
Fun.
Poppycock.
Up there.
Wow.
Get up
Wow.
there.
Wow.
Up there.
Crackle.
Poppycock.
Wow.
Okay, now let's take that and form it into a nice fluffy ball of reflecting light. And let's have it at the top of our collarbone, and where that just radiates and comes out of us, and can just walk around feeling that has, and helping us in whatever we need to be able to say, especially at this time in the world, and just the platform that gives us, and the energy and the ability to speak that gives us, and the word that comes to your head, shout it out, say, speech.
Absolute.
Love.
Absolute.
And let's just take all of that energy and let's just shake it out. Whew. And then I am going to take this and hand it over to Sean.
If everyone could actually find themselves in their chairs, since we're spending a lot of time here on this, in our chairs, and I'm sure you're watching it at home in your chairs, I want you to think about just sitting in your normal place, the normal you, and then I want you to think about where you kind of feel that center of gravity naturally. And I want you to start to cultivate that whole sensation and move it very specifically up, 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 forward slightly until it tracks up your spine, comes to your eyes, and then dips down and touches the tip of your nose. And now you have like an LED light, like Rudolph, but white, seeking out from that nose. And what does that do to your center of gravity? What does it do to your posture in your chair? What does it do to your breath? What does it do to your sensations? I just want to give you just a slight context here, just a slight thing to lean into. And that is, this nose is kind of the anchor of everything you do. It's your conductor when you talk. It's your seeker when you shift. Now, I want everybody to just think about how they're going to negotiate themselves out of their chair using this nose as their prime motivator. This nose is going to look, this nose is going to lever you, And you're probably going to find a little bit of change in how you move your center of gravity, get out of that chair. Don't rush it. Allow that breath to help fortify that. When you're ready, come out of that chair. Just start looking around. You're seeking. That nose is leading that seeking. And very suddenly, you're going to hear something. And I just want you to react to it, how you would react to it from this center leading you. If you want to vocalize, you can vocalize. It's not going to come from in front of you. It's going to come from a different direction. Who knows?
What?
There it is again.
What? Who's there?
Great. You're not exactly sure. So you're going to gather yourself. You're going to gather yourself and think about it. So I want this nose and the body following the nose, the breath following the body to lead you back to your chair. And how does this body in this place, in this breath, find its sitting position again? It's going to be different than yours. Don't rush it. Find all those new weight shifts, those valuable weight shifts that aren't you, and really lean into it. You might keep seeking, you might not. That nose is leading your way. And then I'm going to take the light of that nose, bounce it up, and send it over to Lisa.
And I will take that bounce and allow ourselves to let that float back into your ideal artistic center. And we'll continue with the getting up process. And what I'd like to do is as you're seated, imagine that you can allow yourself to really feel the energy flowing deep into the earth and out in an expanded way with this sense of the ideal artistic center as a sun, like the center of the chart. And feel yourself sitting there in this universal sense of balance. And imagine that a center in your big right toe begins to throb and pulse. And it is the pulse and throbbing from the big right toe which can only be relieved by standing. So allow yourself to let that throbbing big right toe radiate through you. Allow it to be your leader and allow it to raise you up. Perhaps you can only get relief by staying in movement. That radiant, throbbing, big right toe. And what you're going to do now, while you're up, you're going to adjust something in your space.
Well, once you've adjusted whatever it is, let that right toe bring you back to seated. So that throbbing center brings you back. So you might sit differently than how you would normally with this center. And then shake that off completely and let that go. And now it's just open for chatting about centers, your experience with centers, your experience teaching them, things that have happened that have been helpful, that have not worked so well, anything anybody wants to chat about. Or any feedback on the exercises you just experienced.
Some of my students this year, what I found with my freshman class in my movement course, I added a center exploration time in the course. And there was a couple of students that it was very enlightening for them. And they wrote in their final journey that the centers spoke to them so much that they finally realized that they were a creative artist, that it excited them about their craft and the ability to play, and how creative, how much it shaped their life, their character, for the first time that they really felt something happen to them. These are freshmen, but how valuable it was for that one person significantly. A lot of people said it was really, really neat to experience it, but that one person like really felt that it made him feel like an artist for the first time in his life, which is a wonderful discovery for him.
That's amazing. That is great.
I think this is one of the most transformational tools, and I feel that it's really one of Chekhov's ingenious, you say, tools. I mean, invention. It's really, because for me, it's like magic, and this is what acting is all about for me. I really love this tool, because it really is, you know, saying to yourself, I can do anything, and it really gives you the you know, how do you say it, the confidence of doing anything that you want. So this is really an amazing tool for me.
I mean, for me, I think it's one of the easiest to grasp as well. Even for kids can do it. And you give them these images. You might not give them a bleeding heart and a cloud dripping blood, but you could give them a fun pink fluffy center or something. And then obviously, depending on the level, it can go to other places. But, you know, even when I've worked with kids, this is something they can grasp pretty quickly. And I'm sorry, Sean, you started to say something?
No, I was just concurring. I just don't think that there's any more singular thing that leverages breath, body, voice kind of harmoniously, integratedly, than working with the centers. I mean, I think that it's such a powerful tool. People intrinsically feel it before they intellectually understand it. That's been my experience with it. You know what I mean? When you say something like put a light on your nose, and then they start moving, everything changes, and they don't even have to be aware of kind of fundamentally what's going on. Their body has to adapt. It's so powerful, I think.
I had been teaching centers in a different way, where it was just about the location of where they were prior to doing this work. And I found that the addition of imagery really made a huge impact on the experience for the students. And so if you could really find a way to create an image that had some kind of a visceral experience with you when you do it, it really seems to activate a lot of things within the students. One thing that was interesting when I was, that I proposed to them when they were looking at centers, something that really opened up a lot of doorways for them is when the thought that a center could actually be placed onto another person. And they really responded to that in a very strong way, that it could actually emanate from somebody else, or it could move to a different place and fixate somewhere. So I found that imagery really tends to activate a lot of things.
And have you done an exercise in class where the whole group is moving and you're imagining that you have a secret crush on someone, but you can't let them know, and you just keep moving, but you want to be near that person if you can, but you can't let them know and you don't want anybody else to know? And I mean, to me, that's a great exercise, and you're physically moving to get that idea that your center could be in somebody else. You're so focused on that person and getting close to them. And so I think that's a good setup for what you're talking about.
Right, and we also use enemy protector as one of that, as part of that as well. Finding that there's a protector in the room, finding that there's an enemy without trying to let on, and letting all of your impulses emanate from that person. But clearly, the you know, having a crush on somebody is something that everybody can quickly jump to and can quickly relate to.
And did we ever play monkey in the middle with the big ball when you were with us?
Probably.
Because I'm just thinking we have a protector, we have the monkey, and then we have the protector protecting the monkey, and then everybody's trying to get the monkey. And anyway, that's a crazy game too with protector. It just came to mind. So I don't know that we've played that with everybody because it gets a little crazy. But Ophir, you've played that with us? Okay.
Yeah, and I do it with my students all the time.
You do? Yeah, it gets
Yeah.
exciting because people get really excited to get the monkey.
Such a wonderful thing because it's like you said, it engages their thinking and their feeling and their willing life. Like just with the simplest center will just completely change your entire inner landscape, and they don't have to think about it. It's just something that naturally happens, and I think it really makes them like when I first found Chekhov, how excited I was because it put me back in the sandbox like I was a little kid again, and instead of that whole methodology of my objective, my action, my tactic, how do I create a character? It's really nice for them to get into their imaginations and realize how creative they are.
You can also discover character, you can discover intention, objective without sitting down trying to intellectually write that out and figure it out. I mean, you could do it through an exercise like this and then realize, oh, that's what it was, as opposed to the reverse. So it's sort of getting it into your body, and then you could write down what that analysis is, because as we say, sometimes analysis is paralysis, that you write down all this stuff and then you go to do a scene, none of it's there. You just intellectualized it all. You never experienced it. So this gets you to experience it right away.
So the concept of the universal center, where we have this ideal human being in the center of the chest, is something that we work for to help us find that what is normally called neutral state, but we call it universal. It is essentially not wiping the slate clear or clean, because that's really impossible, but it is allowing all the full colors of the being to be present, like the full rainbow of potentials. And so from there we can shift and we can focus our energy and our attention to a particular point, inside or outside or in the other, as you've already discussed. And very often in a lot of Chekhov training, this concept of using it as an element of characterization is reduced to simply a location. And the NMCA way is to remember the 3 different questions we can lead our imagination with regarding the center, that Mr. Chekhov very clearly lays out in On Theater and the Art of Acting, the audio series. And he speaks very specifically that we have a location, and that we have a quality, and that there is a degree of mobility. There's some kind of motion. So it's possible that you have an image, for example, a chipmunk, and the chipmunk has its kind of own quality, and it has its own degree or sense of motion. It's not frozen unless I set a statue of a chipmunk in your shoulder, for example. So remembering to ask those 3 questions, where is it, what is it, and does it move? If so, how? Is always a very exciting way to come up with creative centers. And we also have the question of the 3 psychological forces of thinking, feeling, and willing, which are often identified by some teachers as centers themselves. And in the NMCA, we encourage you to use those when you're speaking of those as forces, psychological forces. They're considered forces of the soul. They're forces of invisible energy patterns that operate actually in all parts of your body. So we do have generally our thinking forces manifesting up in the area, the realm of the head, or our feeling forces in the realm of the torso, and our will forces in the limbs, in the lower body. But we also have will, for example, in our jaw, and feeling forces in our eyes and cheeks and in our palms, or will down here in the heel. So if we always refer to thinking, feeling, and willing as centers, we often eliminate the from our students' minds the actual concept of movable centers, or we narrow it. It almost becomes that the only movable centers you have are thinking, feeling, and willing, and it loses the opportunity for them to really understand that I could be a thinking predominated person and I could have my center in my knee. It would not have to be in my head. And so we will always want to make teaching choices and learning choices and application choices that expand the potential of the tool rather than narrow it. And so those are the two big points that I wanted to make about the difference between a movable center and the thinking, feeling, willing as forces, and that we have 3 basic questions we ask about those centers. And there are questions a character can have a center in a particular part of their body with a quality and degree of movement that is essential to their characterization and stays that way. And certainly for a series regular, for example, that center kind of defines them, and that would be the central aspect of their characterization. It wouldn't necessarily change. But someone who, in a story where the character goes through a deep personality change, for example, Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, his center might shift. He might start with a center that is in his fingertips, and it might travel through him. So this center could actually be traveling and morphing as part of the character arc there. And it's also possible that the way you interrelate with a particular person does cause a temporary center shift. And one place where I will use a center, not just for characterization, but to help achieve an acting moment, is for surprise. So I have a tendency, like some actors, to anticipate the surprise, to make it hard for me to feel really spontaneous and not, start to react ahead of time. And so for me, that have it from wherever my center might be, having it fly into my throat, up and back, with this flying shock, is something that I use regularly to help get that sense of surprise. So that's another way to use a movable center.
What do you think about utilizing the tendencies to, like when we physicalize our thinking life, the tendencies to different parts of our bodies? What do you think about them helping to support the center no matter where it is in the body? Or you don't connect the two at all, even though the forces help you shape the center no matter where it's at?
Yes. The answer is yes. Yes. You kind of asked me, is it this or that? And it is kind of yes. So in our work, we are always rehearsing for one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go through my rehearsal really if I'm a thinking dominated character, and I'm going to be aware that my joints and my fingertips and the top of my head in particular and my language, I'm going to hit the sounds that come off the top of my mouth with the tip of my tongue, and that kind, and my fricatives and plosives are going to have a lot of air in them. And so as I go through that, I'm going to move in straight lines, and I'm going to engage all the patterns that a thinking dominated person does in a little bit of an exaggerated form. And once I see, because I'm thinking dominated, I'm going to reach for my sunglasses, and I've got them close to the tip here. And I'm going to, whereas I normally might come like this have some middle finger and thumb in the middle to put them on, that I realize I'm going to take them straight here, and I'm going to put them on like this because I'm thinking dominated. And I have something very different. Yes, I love this. I'm thinking dominated. Woo! And so because of that, I have something, wow, I mean, that looked really cool, didn't it? And so, and I'm going to just do this again, but now I'm going to do this feeling with and I'm going to allow the center to be in the palm of my hand and radiate into, into there. And I'm going to be indirect with my process as I do it. And I have, now the palm of my hand is there, and I'm in the feeling forces. So I'm just going to let them sort of rest against my teeth. There. So yes, we would rehearse all the way through for one thing, and then rehearse just for the center. For example, now I'm going to practice with a center in my left hip that's crunched and tight, but I've got already the jewels that I've discovered from my thinking rehearsal. And now they're going to be shined up, polished up, and sparkling, because now there's a new impulse that's coming from this, ping pong ball in my hip. Mm-hmm. You can use the thinking, feeling, willing concept in terms of the trinity of the psychology to get a start point for where my center might be. And if you did that, then I would suggest you also think where it definitely would not be. And you try that as a center. So you try the opposite, because sometimes that polarity creates a tension in the character. Like the brainy person who's got, a heavy ankle ball and chain on his left foot. It's like his feeling forces are dragging. It takes all his will to drag his feeling forces along as he charges forward with his mental intent. So sometimes going absolutely to the polarity of where the center might logically be given the psychological predominance of character, always a fun choice. One question that sometimes comes up is about the imaginary body in relation to the center. And again, we rehearse for one thing, and imaginary body and thinking, feeling, willing, and centers are all aspects of characterization, and we don't often need all three. They often inculcate each other. I mean, they're a hologram, and so every imaginary body will be predominated by thinking, feeling, or willing, and will have its own center. And every center will produce a psychological predominance, and it will produce an imaginary body. So we often don't need both. And sometimes, again, as we always say, one pathway into finding where the center is through that meditative process, contacting the character through the higher ego, and inviting yourself to have a conversation with them, either an audio conversation or a visual. You can Zoom with your characters, and invite them to contact you through your imaginary Zoom field there, and download them, or you can travel into their space and watch them, ask them to show you or to tell you, or to allow you to kinesthetically experience where their center is and what is the quality. And you literally can, like in your imagination, either if you're an audio type person, you can sort of expand your listening to listen in more to their body. You can visually focus in to get a clearer picture of a body part, and you can have them rotate. So you can watch them walk, for example, from behind. And it's always a great thing in your practicing to create an etude, a sequence of activities that a character might do. And maybe you don't know exactly what the character will be doing in the text, but the character certainly has to wake up in the morning and brush their teeth and get dressed. So you can always do a simple etude, putting on a shoe, washing your face, brushing your teeth, putting on a shirt, and create a sequence with a clear beginning, middle, and end, and really work that sequence to allow every moment of it to be led or inspired or guided. I like all the different words, the languaging that everyone used, the fuel that moves you, the ignition point, all those things are good ways to play with the imaginary center.
I wanted to ask, when you work with students or professionals even, they usually, when you go to centers, they usually do it, and then you say, but where is the partner? I'm so inside of myself. I don't see her, I don't see him. So what thing do you have to say about this issue?
There's a learning curve to all of Michael Chekhov's tools. And the learning curve is first to know thyself and to experience thyself and experience the tool guiding you, yielding to the inspiration of the tool as if the tool were the puppet master and you simply respond to it. And that does draw you into often an inner object concentration, technically what we would call a circle 4, and a specific but not present thing that your concentration is on. And that makes it difficult for you to go into 2, which is the focal point 2, where you're in direct contact with your partner and looking eye to eye with your partner. So when you're first learning a tool, so as we said, for example, centers, I'm so busy thinking of my center that while I may be looking at you, I'm not actually contacting you. Just physically looking, but energetically, I'm not actually contacting you because I'm in my inner world. And that is a phase. And it is a phase you must go through. And once you rehearse something for that particular tool, and it will happen with any tool, and it definitely is going to happen in all of your early training, and we want it to happen. We don't want you to worry about what the other partner is doing yet, because it's when you are with your partner and beginning to respond, it's like learning to tango with another person or learning to waltz with another person. If you can't do a basic box step yourself, and if in doing the basic box step for your waltz, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, and then moving it, beginning to move it, if you can't do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, this first by yourself, then being able to hook into a partner and feel the pulse of your partner it's going to be a disaster. You're just going to trip over each other's feet. So we learn, like any dancer, you're going to learn the basic steps in a slow way. You're not going to be radiating to the audience. You're not going to be selling your dance or your song to your audience until you know the notes, until you know the steps. And after you learn those, then you can actually begin to play. So when a basketball player is learning to dribble the ball, they're not busy looking around for who to pass it to next. First, they're just trying to see, can they hit the ball and get the ball to come where they think it should be? Can they get it to go this way, this way, or that way? How fast, how far? Can they switch from one hand to the other? Can they pass it under their leg and have it come up in the other hand? Can they spin with it? Can they do a drill all by themselves with this? And then when they can do that, and when they can dribble the ball without having to look at the ball, that's when you're going to start working on plays, on a gameplay there that has other people and depends on you assessing whether that person's ready to receive the ball. That's when you're ready to really exchange dialogue and really contact and adjust what you're doing. So what you're talking about is a learning curve, and I think it's really helpful, especially with professional actors who are especially coming off of a Meisner-based training, where they really are being told that they are only reacting. What we're doing is we're inviting them to react and interact with their imagination first, and allow their imagination to be able to flow through. And once they practice that, then they will be able to let the imagination go, if in effect, on invisible autopilot. Right? So it will guide you without you having to concentrate. And now you can put your concentration actually on making contact and being responsive while holding the requirements of the medium. You know, if the character says, "Stop yelling at me," and you're not yelling, "Stop hurting me," and you're doing nothing to hurt them, then the actor needs to be able to experience how to get the, if I'm saying you're hurting me and you're doing nothing to hurt me, if I'm only able to act off of what you give me, then I won't be able to act the scene. But if I'm a Chekhov actor, I can imagine being hurt. I can imagine that you saying nothing is the most painful thing to me. I can imagine that you giving me nothing is horrible for me. So then I'm ready to be able to, hook in and play. Does that help, Ophir?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Really letting people know that there's a learning curve, I think, is important for them to feel safe, to feel that they are going to get to the point where they're absolutely in the moment with what's coming to them, but they're never going to lose their guidepost for what is required in the given circumstances and direction, style. Paul?
That happens with atmospheres as well. You need to live in them long enough so they're just there.
That's right. That's right.
Like the basketball. It's
yeah. You work that atmosphere, you create that atmosphere, and then you live in it, and you have to trust that it's there. And then you can work on your center, you can work on your gesture, whatever it is.
So just dovetailing on what you were just talking about between Michael Chekhov approach and the Meisner approach, it seems like with the Meisner approach, so there's a greater emphasis on the other and externals. Did Michael Chekhov have any kind of did he have any kind of recorded perspective about the Meisner work? Do you recall any kind of him commenting on that? Or I'm just kind of curious to know, because it feels like it's, what he and Stanislavski have created is an ecosystem where it's all inclusive. It includes, the other, whereas there's greater emphasis on the Meisner with the externals and your partner. Are you familiar with any perspective that he had on that?
Yes. So first I'll start with remembering that Meisner references Michael Chekhov in his preface as one of his inspirations. And that he says that in Michael Chekhov, he discovered that truth as a naturalism was far from the whole truth, and that he wanted that. And that's really significant to understand. And I will just say there's a new book coming out called Michael Chekhov and Sanford Meisner, Collisions and Convergences in Actor Training. And it's coming out maybe this month. It's already on Amazon by Anjali Hutchinson. And both Will and I have contributed to that. And Anjali is one of our NMCA certified teachers. And in that, I have two of my chapters. I have two chapters, and one of the chapters is utilizing Michael Chekhov's exercise 12 and 13 from To the Actor as an alternative to the repetition exercise that it really outlines what I've spoken about, needing to train the self first to be improvisational with you. You need to learn to improvise by yourself, within yourself, before you can really be improvisational with your partner. And this idea of being in the moment is, through Chekhov's world, takes us into the moment that is inspired. Our partner is everything. We're in communion. We're in 5 communions. We're in communion with the author. So the author's words may be the partner that we respond to in one given moment, or it's the set, the costume piece. We're in contact with the mise en scène, and the set piece could be what triggers and inspires us tonight, or our partner, or the audience, right? Or some sort of directorial structures. The fact that the director has me crossing downstage left at this moment may be really inspiring one night. And so we're responding and being sensitive to impulses that arise from multiple stimuli. And then when we're at that level, then responding to our partner is simply, one of 5 partners. The human partner is one of 5. So there is that. And then I will say Michael Chekhov died in 1955. So Sanford Meisner was not anyone that Michael Chekhov would have known at that time. And Meisner technique was not known at that time. So Sanford Meisner was just beginning his sort of foray into teaching and hadn't developed or become who he became. And one of the things that you touched upon is that the Meisner technique, when you spoke of Chekhov Stanislavski being a very whole and full technique, one needs to keep in mind that Sanford Meisner built his empire out of the neighborhood playhouse as one teacher in a conservatory environment. So he wasn't responsible for the full complement of the training. And what happened was, what the neighborhood playhouse was known for was an anti-method, as Strasberg put the method out. So the neighborhood playhouse was where you went if you had money, wanted to go to a 2-year conservatory, and didn't want to do effective memory recall in Strasberg. So your alternate to the Strasberg Institute was the neighborhood playhouse. If you didn't have money, then you went to HB Studios. Those were the 3 main studios. And Stella Adler, who was an alternate also, but appeared a little closer to the Strasberg, separating over this fundamental recall issue. So Sanford Meisner's work was founded out of a studio that was grounded in Martha Graham and modern techniques. And so everyone who went to the neighborhood playhouse was having movement. They were having the Williamson technique, or they were having Martha Graham techniques. They were having all these movement techniques. So movement was not at all what Sanford Meisner's work was about. Didn't need to be. The movement teachers watched the classes. They saw the problems, the physical problems that the actors were having, and they tried to work with those in other classes. And when the technique became popular and a bunch of people graduated, and they were experiencing their first alternative to effective memory, where they were not living in the past, but were in the moment, it felt really good. It was a very big shift from all this process of living in your past, which causes that same disconnect we were just talking about when you're living in your imagination and not really connected with present. Same thing with effective memory. You're living in the past. at least in the imagination, you're in forward motion rather than in backward motion. So that's one of the great gifts Michael Chekhov offers us. And but Meisner's work felt so different for those people who were used to being emotionally drained from the from the effective memory recall. And that's one reason, the main reason, that it became very popular in the 70s. And with the growth of that, with the popularity of it, a lot of actors were produced who became unemployed and therefore started hanging out shingles teaching Meisner. And again, because people were looking to find an alternative to effective memory, and he had good PR and he had a very strong ego, he supported that. And those people extracted all the supplementary training and just taught what he was teaching, which was not a full program. And so you started to produce these physically disconnected actors. And Bill Esper from Rutgers had Chekhov teachers and the Williamson technique being taught in that department with Meisner, his Meisner work as the central thing. And at one point, I think he actually laid them off, or, decided that wasn't necessary, and noticed in due time, in very short order, within a year or two, the distinct difference in his actors, and hired those teachers back. So Bill Esper, without Bill Esper, Meisner also wouldn't have the status that it has. So, but Bill Esper knew that it wasn't a standalone technique. And I do agree that Michael Chekhov's work embodies everything that Meisner was looking to embody, and does so through the artistic realm of the being spontaneous in the moment of the character, rather than being spontaneous in the moment of your personality.
Yeah, Lisa, where do these videos play, and the ones that you're doing with the gentleman from Germany?
Yes.
Are they posted somewhere, and where do I find those to see the earlier ones?
Yes, I'm doing a series called Chekhov Master Teachers Talk with Jörg Andres from the Michael Chekhov International Academy in Berlin. And you can go to chekhov.net, CHEKHOV.net, and on the front page, Charlie has a video resources on the right side of the page. If you go to those video resources, he's created a page, and in the center is this series. And I think on the left side of the page are some individual things like staccato, legato, and Wil's warm-ups, and some things like that. And then on the right side of this page, I believe, are some of the links to the Master's Talk. You can also go to Lisa Dalton's YouTube channel and go to playlists. And there are various playlists. So there's a Chekhov on Your Feet playlist, which is containing just the first sections of what we've been doing. And there's the insights, Chekhov on Your Feet and Insights and Ideas. There's a playlist that's about theoretical. It's called Insights and Ideas, so it's all the talking stuff. There's one with just the Master's Talk series.
Okay.
So Lisa Dalton's YouTube channel. Great question.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any thoughts? So glad that you joined us today. Really happy. Will had to check out and go off to his other class that he has. So we're going to be back again next week. We'll do, did Will say what we're doing next week?
Mm-hmm.
I would say we're doing imaginary bodies. Since we're in our characterization series. So we'll be back to play Up on Our Feet. Thank you guys so much for leading and hanging in there. And
we're going to wrap up this. So that's a little bit of the Michael Chekhov technique on your feet. the National Michael Chekhov Association way, and I thank all of our wonderful participants here.
My favorite person is...
One minute on your imaginary bodies.
We took a scene from Golden Boy. We all did the same scene.